Well, good morning. It's just me today to talk about troll farms. It is Friday, October 18, 2024. Uh, Bleeping Computer has another article about undercover North Korean IT workers. There have been stories about this before. They impersonate people from unsanctioned countries. They get hired at companies, and then they leave and steal the data and then extort employers, uh, demanding a ransom to not publicize the data. They also recommend each other. So you'll get recommendations from other uh, impersonators from North Korea, from other companies. So it's a big deal. And if they fooled the company No before, among others, large companies are being fooled by this. You're tricked into hiring North Korean workers, then they get fired for poor performance. But before that, they steal the company data and leak it off for ransom. So it seems like a real threat. And I guess to defend yourself, I guess the HR departments need to be more vigorous about checking up references and such. Uh, I don't know. It seems like these days, you hire remote workers, you never really meet them. Uh, they do tend to avoid video calls and use tricks like a fake AI generated face. So you can't see what they look like. So I guess that would be one clue you could use to detect them. But I can see a lot of problems. Now, this is The Intercept. The Intercept has a story about drug sniffing police dogs intercepting abortion pills in the mail, which I guess is somewhat in their wheelhouse. An employee at a Mississippi post office saw somebody putting pills in pink envelopes. So they told the local police, and they brought in their drug sniffing dog, and the drug sniffing dog detected the abortion pills. So that's interesting. The drug sniffing dogs are trained to detect narcotics, and the pills are not narcotics. But I'm used to criticizing how AI does things, and I don't know how dogs do things. I wonder if they're actually smelling the narcotics themselves, or if they're just smelling something like the filler or the packaging that tends to come with medicine. Anyway, it's an interesting procedure. And I certainly expected a lot more of this. I mean, the red states that have banned abortion are trying to figure out how to ban leaving the state to get abortion in another state. And I'm sure they would like to figure out how to ban getting abortion pills in the mail. I mean, from the viewpoint of those states, this is like sending any other illegal drug through the mail. And I would expect them to implement all the law enforcement policies and procedures that are used against other illegal drugs. I mean, we would, like almost everything in America, everything will depend on the next election. But our current situation is back to the way it was in my childhood, with the red states banning abortion and the women in those states having to sneak around and get illegal or underground abortions or somehow defy state law in various ways to escape their unfriendly state and go to a place where they can get the medical care they need. It's one of the many very sad things in America. We're going backwards. Uh, so this one is the one I decided was the most important to put as the headline, to register as an article, where Uncle Sam puts a $10 million bounty on the Russian troll farm Rybar. And I had to look up quite a few things here. I wondered what part of the U.S., for example. And it is some group, part of the Foreign Office I'd never heard of before, puts bounties on foreign individuals. And I have a lot of questions. I mean, exactly how does it benefit America to identify the Russians running a troll farm, putting up fake statements about our elections? We can't arrest them. They like to put these arrest warrants for foreign individuals. I wonder if that actually deters them. I wonder if it even makes any sense because they're probably Russian military operating under orders from above. But anyway, they manage social media channels, hold the line, and stand with Texas, which promote pro-Russian political interests. And they're now the main thing they push is the southern border, concerns about that. And so they're very closely tied to mainstream Republican interests. And they affect people with like posts with accounts of like 1 million followers and such. And they also promote about U.S. abandoning Ukraine and other things like that. So anyway, they put a $10 million bounty on it. If they can identify these people, um, it is necessary for the U.S. government to say they're doing something about Russian interference in our election. And here they are again. In fact, they say they expect more interference in our election than they have in previous elections, which does make sense because Vladimir Putin, I think his whole Ukraine war depends on getting Trump back in the White House, which is currently looking pretty good. I was just listening to the Pivot podcast, and Scott Galloway says he rates this by the price of Trump media, which was at $42 back when he was running against Biden. It looks like it was sure he'd win. Then when Kamala came in, it fell to $12, but now it's back up to $30. So apparently, most people say the momentum has gone back to Trump, and it looks like Trump is likely to win, even though he seems to be totally melting down. He seems to be senile, just like Biden. He seems to be making a disaster of his latest public events, rambling off, not even answering questions, um, not even giving answers that make any sense, just refusing to answer questions and just dancing to music instead of bothering to pay attention to the audience and such. It's um, it's strange that he is pulling ahead at this time when he does seem to be demonstrating the same kind of mental problems that Biden had. We'll see what comes of this. Anyway, this is the second case I've heard where Musk is being sued, and the governments, it first happened in Brazil, and now it's happening in the European Union. They've decided that they're considering whether they can calculate the fines on his total holdings, not just the company that offended the law. So X has broken a law in EU, which is very likely because they have the Digital Services Act, which is pretty strict, and X is pretty outrageous. And that's also in Brazil. He violated Brazilian law. But now in the European Union, the penalty is a percentage of your total revenue. And they want to include his other companies like Tesla and SpaceX. So this is very interesting. It could be very important. If they actually do that, that kind of undoes the entire point of forming corporations. The reason people form corporations, one of the main reasons they do in America, is to protect your personal assets. The corporation can get sued and they can only go after corporate assets. If they can just add up all the assets you have, then there's no point to make a corporation. There's no point to be split into separate corporations, except perhaps to evade antitrust. Anyway, this seems like a real important precedent to be set in the EU. We'll see what comes of that. Also, Elon Musk has been saying that he's going to provide Starlink service for people in North Carolina who've been hit by the bad weather, hurricanes or tornadoes. And he loudly proclaimed he's giving it to them. And here, one of the reporter here at the Register, Stephen Von Nichols, who lives in North Carolina, says it's a complete lie. They say he offers you Starlink, and then you have to pay for it. You have to pay $400 for the equipment, and then you'll be on the hook for a $120 a month residential subscription. So that's not much of a deal at all when you just lost your house and everything. So they say it's amazing how much the oligarchs all seem the same. Musk is just like Donald Trump. Donald Trump always claimed he was going to donate things and give away things, and then it turns out he just doesn't do it, just like he just doesn't pay his bills. And Elon Musk just doesn't pay his bills, and he doesn't pay them severance pay he owes his employees, and he doesn't pay the lawyers, and he doesn't pay the rent. They just all seem to be the same as medieval nobles that just trample on the commoners and get away with it because they're rich and powerful and the law doesn't apply to them, which seems to be more or less true. I thought this was fake when I saw this at Time magazine, why surgeons are wearing the Apple Vision Pro in operating rooms, but apparently they are. And the reason is because there are operations where they stick a camera in your body, and then the surgeon has to do surgery with some kind of remote tool while looking at the camera to see what's going on. And they say currently they have to turn and look behind them to look up at the screen and then try to coordinate their motions while looking in the wrong direction, which is sort of trying to do something while looking in a mirror. It's difficult and clumsy. And they say now you can be looking right at the patient and it will give you a heads up display of that camera view, which is much easier to work with. So that actually makes sense. I was interested to hear that application of the augmented reality technology that I don't think is really taking off for normal people, but that seems like one good application of it. The FCC will soon require all hearing aids and phones to work together. I didn't know anybody was not doing this, but certainly they should. I've got a friend that works this way, and also they now say they're now able to sell Apple AirPods as hearing aids. So I think this is great. They should just use normal standard Bluetooth. They should interact with phones. All phones and all hearing aids should be compatible, and that is the rule that is coming after a transition period. So that's good. Certainly my hearing is pretty bad. I'm probably going to have to use hearing aids like everybody else pretty soon. And connecting them to the phone with Bluetooth seems like a really good idea. Then you can have remote adjustment with an app on the phone, and you can play things from the phone into your hearing aids and so on. So a couple articles about China. There was a recent article from a China a published paper where they claim to have broken some military-grade encryption, but this seems to be wildly overstated. Uh, I heard on the Steve Gibson's podcast, Security Now, he said what they did was they attacked RSA encryption, but they were only able to factor a 22-bit integer. Now, this article on Forbes by Craig Smith says they managed to factor a 50-bit integer. In either case, that's very, very far from the keys we're actually using, which are 2048 bits in RSA. So just like all other quantum computing, I've been talking about this for years, quantum computing shows promise of breaking our encryption someday, but not for decades, and maybe never. And in particular, what's surprising about this really is not that they can crack short keys that are far shorter than the keys we actually use, but that they did it with quantum annealing. Quantum annealing is an interesting process, but it's not the one normally considered to be a risk to cryptography. Quantum annealing is where you have a high temperature condition simulated with some random motion of them of whatever you have. In this case, it would be qubits, and then you cool the temperature, and it therefore condenses into the lower energy state. I got involved in this long ago, considering it for protein folding. But anyway, apparently they found some way to use quantum annealing to factor numbers into their prime components. So that's different than the Shor's algorithm. This is the most famous way to do it. But in any case, in both cases, currently available quantum computing hardware is not remotely able to do anything powerful enough to crack modern encryption. So it's another incremental step forward, probably of some scientific and mathematical value, but not a real risk to our computing anytime soon. And the last one I have here, another article from the Register by Laura Doberstein. Intel has responded to Chinese claims that its chips include security backdoors at the direction of the NSA. And the interesting thing here, a couple interesting things. I don't know why China would accuse them of such an outrageous thing of putting backdoors in their chips, but the response didn't exactly deny it, which makes it more interesting. Last Thursday, Intel said, "We have noted the recent relevant media reports. Intel strictly abides by the laws and regulations applicable in its business locations. We put product safety and quality first." They don't actually address the concern that they have put an NSA backdoor in their chips, which is, my first response is to say that's insane, that can't be true, but they don't quite deny it. So it seems like at the very least, this is like leaving the door open for conspiracy theories and wild accusations. Reminds me of the one I'm always mad at Bloomberg from years ago. Bloomberg claimed years ago that there were extra chips in iPhones and routers and other devices put in by China to spy on us. And there were a huge storm of denials and no evidence. And it seemed like that was just made up by a famous reporter that just keeps getting fooled by counterintelligence operations. But Bloomberg never denied it. They claimed to have an investigation. They never seemed to have the investigation or any results. So it's another claim floating around out there without a really clear resolution. So anyway, that's all I've got for today. And I'll have another one of these things on Tuesday.